For Excel Project 2, we will be working with a little bit larger worksheet. We will be doing some new tasks that you probably haven't used before. We will learn how to put in formulas. We'll learn a little bit more about some of the functions, and then we'll do some formatting stuff at the end that is going to show you some of the power that Excel has, so that you can use this for projections and highlighting specific parts that you need to pay attention to of the information that you have in a spreadsheet. So one of the things that you might have missed, because we didn't have class last week, and I honestly don't remember if I talked about this in the Module 1 recordings that I did, but one of the things that you need to do when you're starting to work on a new spreadsheet is make sure that you know what is required for the document that you are creating. So if you are the one that is in charge of creating it, you need to kind of lay out a plan of what you think you need to try to make sure you get everything done before you put it all together. If someone else is asking you to prepare a spreadsheet for them, you need to make sure that you have from them all of the information that is required. You'll see in your textbook some sketches that have been done in like a handwriting, so you can use those as kind of an example to go by to make sure that you have all the requirements needed before you begin putting a spreadsheet together. This particular spreadsheet that we're working with in Excel Module 2 is a spreadsheet that's going to keep track of our employees' pay for the pay period. So you'll see that we start with a blank spreadsheet. So there's going to be a little bit of typing involved in this, but not as much as you might think, because we're going to be putting in some formulas, and functions, and we're going to be copying those using the fill handle across most of this spreadsheet that we are creating. We will begin by going to cell A1 and typing the name of our company. Then we'll use that down arrow key. You can press your enter key, move down to cell A2, and we're going to type that this is our salary report. And I'm going to have to make this bigger. Let's set that first. Okay. So we have our title and our subtitle entered, and then we are going to put in our column title. So this is going to be in row 3 across columns A through K. So we'll go to A3. When you get to D3, we're going to type the word hours, and then we want the rest of this, the word worked on a second row. So we're going to hold this our Alt key down and press enter. That will take us to a second row in the same cell. And here we'll type worked. We can tab over to column E, and we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to type hourly, Alt, Enter, pay rate. And then the rest of these we'll just type normally. This one, tax percent, make sure you do put a space between the word tax and the percent sign. Some people don't do that, and then they get that counted off when they go to get it graded. Okay, you may have noticed that the word address, dependent have been cut off. That is because the cells are only a certain width whenever they come in a spreadsheet. We will be learning how to adjust the width of those, and you need to know that it is okay to go ahead and click in the next column to type information, even if part of that cell is being covered up by something that's in the previous column. So just keep that in mind. The next thing that we're going to do is type in our employees. So you're going to have the last name and then the first name. In A13, we need to type the word totals, and I see I am off a line, so I will take care of that here in just a little bit. In the next row, we'll type highest. Lowest, and then average. Okay, so what I'm going to do, since I did not get on row 3, I'll come up here and I'm going to delete row 3. That's going to move everything up, and so now all of my lines are where they should be. Okay, we can go ahead and go over to our dependents in column C, and want to find the table that has all of this information in it. So you can either go across the screen, across each row, filling in column by column, or you can go down an entire row. It's kind of up to you, whatever you want to do. We're going to skip the email addresses for right now, and we'll come back and put those in here in just a little bit. So I'm going to just go down this column. And then their hours worked. These will have some decimal places with them. The first one, 74.50. You do not have to put the 50 in there. You can just put the 0.5. For the next one, that's 80. You can just put the 80. We will be formatting these a little bit later on, so they will all have 2 decimal places. And they'll be a little bit easier for everybody to read, since they will all be matching up alignment-wise. The next thing is we need to put in their hourly pay rate. Same thing here. If you have a 0 at the end, you don't need to type it in, but Sometimes it's just as easy to type it in because you're just in the habit of doing that. The last column we're going to fill in is our hire date. And if you've looked at the completed project, the hire date may look a little different than what it is when we type it in here. When you type it in, it may be in a little bit different format than what you're seeing. And it just kind of depends on what is set up as your date format. So now that we have all of that data typed in, that is everything that we need to type in as far as data is concerned. And we will be putting in some formulas and functions for the rest of this, and then copying those to the locations where they need to be. We're going to go ahead and learn how to put in the email address now. We're going to use a technique called flash fill, and I will just tell you, if this does not work for you the first time, just delete everything, start over again. Well, not everything, delete your email address information, start over again, and just try it a second or third time, because I have to do that sometimes. What we're going to do is we're going to type in an email address for the first two people. Now, most companies or organizations, the email addresses all follow the same pattern. For our instance here, it's going to be the first initial, the last name, at whatever the email address is. And so once we have that set up for the first two employees, then we're going to be able to use this flash fill option to fill in the rest of these. Now, I will just tell you right now that sometimes this works for all of them, and sometimes it works for most of them, but not every single one of them. So double check to make sure that they're all correct before you actually submit this, to make sure that you won't have anything counted off. So we're going to type B and then the last name, ALTORE, at example.com. Press the enter key. We'll go down to Linda Fox. We'll type L Fox at example.com. Now that we have both of those typed, we are going to select the range B4 through B12. Now, I'm going to start at the bottom here, because if you click on those top ones, you are going to click and do an email address. So I'll try it this way and see. So now I'm going to find my flash fill button. And for this, we have to go to our data tab. And then over here in the data tools, you will see the flash fill button. And when we click on this, it is supposed to take all of the names from our employees and put in a correct email address for them. So we see that this has J Handfield, which is correct, B Jammy, I don't know, S Nacht, J Pitfield, J Spalding, S Tillman, and O. Wilson. So hopefully those all came in correct for you. If they didn't, make sure that you do select the entire range. And like I showed you, it might be easier to start down in B12, select up to B4, and that way you won't get into an email trying to open Outlook and things like that. And so that should work for you if you do the flash fill that way. Now we're going to change the sheet tab name and color. So we are going to come down here to the sheet tab, and we're going to double click, and that will change the sheet tab so that it is all selected. We can just type over where it says sheet 1 to the name we want, which is salary report. Now I will tell you, it is very important that you type the sheet tab name exactly the way that it needs to be. If you do not, when you submit it into SAM, if the sheet tab name is not exactly right, it will not recognize that entire sheet as being in your workbook. So therefore you will not get any points for anything that's on that worksheet. So you have to make sure that you get it entered correctly. Now, an alternate way to rename, once you have that typed in, you can press your Enter key, and you'll see that it changes to the to the new name. Alternately, you could do a right click where it says Sheet 1, and then come up to the Rename option. We are also going to change the tab color. So while we're here with our right click, we'll go to the tab color, and we are going to change this to blue accent 1. So here is our blue accent 1. We'll click on that, and so now our tab color is that. And you will see that it is, you will see it more blue if you had another sheet that you could click on. Okay, we are now ready to go up here to our gross pay and enter our first formula. And we are going to enter formulas in a couple of different ways, so you can see that there are multiple ways you can put formulas in. Find the one that works best for you, and you can stick to that. So our first way that we're going to enter a formula is just by typing in the data. So we'll go to F4, and when you're using formulas, you always have to start with the equals, and we are going to multiply D4, which is our hours worked. So we'll type in D4, and in Excel, you will see that typically your cell references are referred to with a capital letter. You do not have to type them in capital letters. You can type them in lowercase, and Excel will change them to uppercase automatically. We're going to multiply, so we'll use the asterisk, and we want to multiply by the hourly pay rate, which is found in E4. So we'll type that in there. As you enter those two cell references, you will notice that Excel puts a blue outline around the D4 and a red outline around E4. So they're color coordinated. You can see what is being multiplied by what. If you have a subtraction or addition, it will do the same thing. It will identify those cell references so you can see that you are actually creating a formula with the correct cells that you're wanting to. So we can press our Enter key, we can press the Tab key, we can also come up here to our formula bar and click on the green check mark for the Enter button. By pressing the Enter button up here, you remain in the current cell, which I did in this case, so you can see these are the results of the formula. The formula will always show up in the formula bar up here. You can also click up here in the formula bar if you need to make edits, and then you can move your mouse or your cursor where you need to make that edit. But by clicking that check mark, you remain in that cell. Now, the second formula that we are going to put in is the federal taxes. And for your federal taxes, let me back up here, because in your textbook it talks about arithmetic operators, which you'll be using. We use addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. In your textbook, it talks about the different arithmetic operators. If you are familiar, if it wasn't that long ago that you took algebra, you will remember some of these. Then in the next section of your textbook, it talks about the order of operations. So again, if you remember back from algebra, in your textbook, it tells you that it first works with negative numbers, then percentages, then exponentiations. We don't do any of those in this particular class. So all you need to worry about is that it does multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So those are the order it goes in, and if you need it to do addition or subtraction before multiplication or division, that information has to be put in parentheses. They show you some examples in your textbook that you can read through, so you can kind of get an idea of how those are going to work. But again, if it wasn't that long ago that you had algebra, it's probably going to make a lot more sense to you. All right, so the next formula we're going to put in here is for our federal tax. And this time, instead of typing in the information, we're going to use what's called point mode. Now, we do have to do a little bit of keyboard typing. So first of all, we have to put in the equal sign. So we'll type the equal sign in. And then for our federal taxes, we are going to multiply the results of what we put in parentheses by 0.26. So we're going to start off with 0.26 and then the asterisk for multiplication. Then we will have to type in our open parentheses. And to do our point, we are then going to click on F4, because we're going to take our gross pay, and then we're going to type a minus sign, because we want to subtract the number of dependents, and that is found in C4. So we'll take our mouse and click over here in C4. Then we are going to subtract that's not correct. We are going to multiply by 22.16, and then we'll close the parentheses. Okay, so let me explain this a little bit. We have our gross pay, and we are going to subtract 3 times 22.16. Now, this 22.16 and the 0.26, those come from the federal government. I don't know exactly how they come up with those numbers, but that is what they tell us that needs to be taken out of a paycheck each pay period for taxes to be held out for the federal government. So what's going to happen first in this parentheses, it's going to do this multiplication. So C4 times 22.16. The result of that is then going to be subtracted from F4. That entire result is then going to be multiplied times the 0.26. And the result is $665.51. Now, I know that's 3 digits there in the decimal place, but we'll change that a little bit later on when we do the formatting. So this is how much our federal tax is. Now, to figure our state tax, it's a little bit easier because there's not as many things we have to multiply by. So we'll go over here to H4 to do our sales tax for, or that should be state tax, not sales tax. So we'll do equals 0.55 times our federal tax, our gross pay, which is in F4. And again, this 0.55 is given to us by our state. So then you can press your enter key, press the tab key, and that is not correct. I gotta fix that. State tax. Okay. This is 0.055. Sorry, I missed a 0 in there. 0.055. Okay, that should give us a better number, 144. That looks much better. We should not have state tax that is higher than our federal tax. Now we're going to go over to I-4, which is our tax percent. So what we're going to do here is we're going to figure out what percentage of our gross pay is taken out of our paycheck each pay period that's going to either to the combination of our federal and our state taxes. What is the percentage that's taken out? So in I-4, we'll type equals, and then you can type the open parentheses, and we can either type in G4 or click on G4, whichever way you want to do it. We're going to add this. The plus sign is with the equal sign, so you have to shift and use the plus sign. And then we're going to type in H4. So we have our federal tax plus our state tax. We'll close our parentheses. It'll do that operation first. And then we are going to divide by, so we use the forward slash, our gross pay, which is in F4. All right, so we have 0.38 taken out, 0.38%. So 31% basically is taken out of our paycheck for taxes. To find our net pay, we will go into cell J4, and this is a simple subtraction. So it's going to be, well, actually what we're going to do is we're going to add our federal and our state tax together to come up with that tax amount that's withheld, or the tax sum that is withheld, and then we will subtract that information from our gross pay. Now, one of the things that is very difficult for students in Excel is doing subtractions, and that is because the way that the instructions are worded a lot of times, we will say subtract your taxes from your gross pay. And because of that, people will always put tax information first and then minus their gross pay. Well, so let's just say that we have $800 in taxes. If you take 800 minus 2626, you're going to get a negative number, and you will not want a negative number on your paycheck. So just think about that when you're doing your subtraction problems. And I know you did one in Module 1, hopefully it was a little more clear-cut than some of the other ones. But a lot of students have difficulty with that. And I usually, when I'm in the classroom, I do examples on the board so you can see. If you write it out like you learned how to write a subtraction problem, with the old math or the real math, not the new math. If you learned the new math, I don't know how to tell you to do it, but so like we would write the bigger number, 2626, and then we would put the minus sign for subtraction, and then put the 800 and whatever below that, and then you would do your subtraction. So you need to think about that and do your formula the same way. So what I do when I write out the formula on the board is I'll do the 2626 minus the 800. Then you put your cell references by your 2600 and your taxes, the sum of your taxes, and then so you'll know how to do the subtraction. So in our case, it will be equals our gross pay, and then in parentheses we will add the federal and the state taxes together. And so once we have that sum, then it will multiply. Then it will subtract from our gross pay to get our net pay. So we'll go equals F4 minus open parentheses, and then we're going to have G4 plus H4, close your parentheses, and then we can tab or press enter. So our net pay is $1,816.18. Now that we have all of our formulas put in for figuring our gross pay, federal tax, state tax, tax percent, and net pay, we can take all 5 of these that have formulas put in them, and we can use our fill handle to fill it all the way down to row 12. So you will select F4 through J4 so that all 5 of those cells are highlighted. You will take your white mouse, put it on that little green square in the lower right-hand corner of your selected cells. Your mouse will turn from that white plus sign to a small black plus sign. You'll click and drag down to row 12. It will fill all of that information in, and now all of our employees have their gross pay, taxes that are taken out, net pay, and the percentage of taxes that are removed from their paycheck. Now, the nice thing about this is we can remove all of this information and have this set up ready for our next pay period. So then we would just go back in each pay period, put the correct numbers in, and voila, everything is created for you so you know what the net pay is for everybody. Textbook talks about the options. When you do that fill handle down, you get the little paste options button that pops up. You can read more about that in your textbook. We are going to do a sum down in row 13 now. So we want to sum the column that has hours worked. Then we can hold our shift key down, and we want to sum column F, G, and H, and column J. We don't need to sum the hourly pay rate because that would be an invalid number. Nothing comes from that. And we don't want to sum the percentage column. What we'll do with the percentage column is we'll go ahead and copy this formula that we have here in column I down to row 13 after we do this sum here. So we have these cells selected that we want to do the sum for. We can come, I have to go back to my home ribbon, and we'll go over here to the auto sum and just click it once, and it will sum all of those rows or all of those columns at the same time. Now we need to find our percent of tax for our total row here. We're going to come to I-12. We're just going to use our fill handle to drag this formula down, and you'll see that it changes from row 12 information to row 13 information. You will also notice that there is a little green triangle in the corner up here. This, if you hold your mouse on this little caution sign here and click it, it's going to tell you that it's an inconsistent formula. And that is because what we have next to it are sums, and what we have here is a division, or as a addition and division problem. And so it's just letting you know that that formula is not the same as the ones on either side of it. You will see here that you can then choose to copy a formula from the left, get help on this, ignore the error. So I'm just going to ignore it because I know what I want is there. And so if I ignore it, then it gets rid of that green triangle and I don't have to see that anymore. next step is to use functions at the bottom of our worksheet here. So we typed in the highest, lowest, and average row headings over here. And what we're going to do is we are going to, in several of these columns, like for dependents, we are going to find the highest number in the section C4 through C12. Now, if we do the same thing for column D, we have to be cautious because when we get to, oh, I don't think we're doing dependents. We don't need to sum dependents. No, they do. They do have a sum dependence. Okay, well, I'm going to show you in column D because I need you to see why you need to be careful when you're doing these functions down here at the bottom. So I want to find the highest number in D4 through D12. So I'm going to go to D14, and to find the highest, we're going to use a function that's called the max function. There are different ways that you can find the max function. Up here on our formula bar, we can use the FX button, which is the insert function button. You can come over here to the auto sum and use the drop down arrow, and most of the time you will find the max function listed there. If you don't, you can go to the more functions. Now, the more functions and the function button over here get you to the exact same place, and I'll show you that when we do the lowest. But for right now, we're going to use this max function that's shown in the auto sum. And this is what I need you to see, that when we do the max function and we're in column D14, it highlights the range D4 through D13. Well, because I have a total in D13, I do not want to include row 13. So when you have this moving dotted line around here, that's called the marquee, you can change the selection. So you'll take your mouse and only select D4 through D13. You can start at the top and go to the bottom. You can start at D12 and go up. But however you do it, you need to make sure that this says D12 through D13. In fact, you could even just backspace here where it has the 3 and type in the 12 to make it correct. Once you have it correct, you can press your enter key and it will show you the maximum number or the highest number in this column. Okay, now to do the lowest, we are going to use we can use the insert function button for this. So we'll click on the insert function. When you go to the insert function, you can search. So we could search up here for min, for the minimum or the smallest number, and find that here, and it tells you that it returns the smallest number in a set of values. You can go into the most recently used. You might find it listed there. You might not. If you don't, you can figure that, well, it's probably in math or maybe in statistics, and then you can look through there to find. They are in alphabetical order, so then you'll just have to go down and find where it says min. Worst case scenario, if you can't guess on which category it might be in, you can always choose the all option, and then because they are in alphabetical order, you can just go down until you find the M's, and then you'll find the min, M-I-N, and select it. When you do the insert function button, or you do from the auto sum more functions, you come to this function arguments dialog box. This is saying that we want to find the minimum or the smallest number, and this is showing in D14. D14 only has the number 80 in it, and so we know that is not correct. So you could type D4 colon D12 here, and so it will then show you out here to the side that it's adding all of those up and dividing by, it's looking at all of those and then pulling out the smallest one. We're not on average, we're on minimum. So then it shows you here that 42.25 is the smallest number in that range, which is correct because there's not very many of them. We can just see that. So we'll click the OK button. You will see up here that this is the formula it's put in. Equals min, open parentheses, D4 colon D12, that range that we want, and then the closing parentheses. Now, again, if I go down here to the average, the other way that you can put in a function is to type the equals and then type average, and you'll see that you have several selections here. If we click on the word average, I think you have to double click, then it will open up the parentheses and you will be able to select what range you want. Again, make sure that you only choose D4 through D12. Once you have that selected, you can press your enter key, and now you have the average for column D. Now that we have all those selected, we are going to use our fill handle to fill them across to column J. So we'll get our fill handle down here. We're going to take this all the way across to column J. And then we have to go to the tax percent and the average. So I-16. An average of a percentage is mathematically incorrect, so we have to remove that. You will have to do that in your homework as well. You'll have to remove one of those percent averages. That's mathematically invalid. Okay, so now that I had us skip doing these functions for column C, I'm going to show you another way you can do this. You can select all three of those cells, and you can take your fill handle and go back the other direction as well, and it will move those formulas over to the left of your selection. So that's pretty cool to know how to do that too. All right. Next part of your textbook talks about the rangefinder. You'll want to read about that. What the rangefinder does is it allows you to come to a cell that has a formula in it. I'll just choose the net pay here. If I double click in J4, shows me my formula that I have put in J4. It also color codes the cell references, so I can then go back and look, match up. So it's going to take this number plus this number. Once it has that number, it's going to subtract that total from the gross pay. So it just lets you be able to identify where your information is being pulled from. This is a good way if you're needing to review, maybe something doesn't look exactly right on your spreadsheet, you can always double click to find that rangefinder and see if you truly are you truly have entered the formula the way you want to. Now, to get out of this, you need to press the escape key, because if you click in another location, we'll see, I lied again because I tried this in class tonight too and it didn't do it. So, okay, so here's what I'm talking about. I had selected this here, and then when I clicked in column I, it put I5 in here. Well, that's going to make my formula in J4 be all off. And this will happen sometimes to students. they get everything else correct, and then they have one cell that's wonky and not right for some reason. So if this happens, press your escape key. It will take it back to the correct formula that it needs to be, as you see up here in the formula bar, and nothing is going to be a problem for you. If for some reason you do happen to get that saved incorrectly, or you get it done incorrectly instead of pressing the escape key, you can always use your undo button to undo that error so you don't get that counted wrong on you. Now that we have all of our data in, we're going to do some formatting for our worksheet to make it look better and to be a lot easier to read. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change our workbook theme so we have the right colors that we're working with. So we'll come up here to our page layout tab, go to the themes, and we're going to choose the gallery theme. Now that we have that selected, we are going to work with formatting our worksheet titles. So we are going to select A1 through K1, and we're going to click on the home ribbon. We want to do a merge and center. We're going to click on A2 through K2, and we're going to do a merge and center for that row as well. We are going to select A1 and A2, and we're going to come up here to our cell styles. We're going to choose the title cell style. Well, that's a little hard to read on mine, but it's in where it says titles and headings, and we're going to come over to where it says title. Then we're going to select A2, and you'll notice that these are both an 18-point font. So what we're going to do for A2 is we're going to decrease the font size so that it's a little bit smaller. So we'll click that decrease font size from 18 to 16. Now we will select A1 and A2, and we're going to change the background color, or we're going to shade the back of that so that it is accent 5, which is going to be indigo, and then we want this to be lighter 80%. So it'll be the next to the last column, and then the lighter 80% is the first option in the different options down there. Column 9, row 2. Now, with this range still selected, we're going to add borders to this. So we'll click our borders arrow, and we are going to choose the outside borders. Then we're going to click outside of A1 and A2 somewhere to deselect that. We are now going to select our column headings. So we'll select A3 through K3. We'll come up to our cell styles gallery, and we are going to choose the heading 3 style, and we also want to choose the center, the content, from the alignment section. Now we're going to go down to A13 through K13. Now I know there's not anything in K13, but because we want our worksheet to be formatted and make it look nicer, we're going to format the entire row where we have data for row 13. So now that A13 through K13 is selected, we are going to apply the total style. So that's right next to the title style that we chose earlier. We're going to choose total style. And then we're going to come over here to A14 through A16, and we're going to hit the B to make those bold. We're going to come up here to our dates in column K. Select K4 through K12. Then up here on our home ribbon in the number group, we are going to click where it says date. Oh, sorry, we're going to use the dialog box launcher there. So here where it says number, we're going to click on this little dialog box launcher, and then we're going to choose date from our category, and we want to choose where we have 3 / the 2-digit month, or the 2-digit day and the 2-digit year. And so we'll say OK. So you might see some changes in that just a little bit. We're going to come over to where our dependents are in column C, and we're going to go all the way down to C16. So C3 down through C16, we are going to center that information. We are now going to apply the accounting number format to parts of our worksheet. The accounting number format is going to include a $sign and 2 decimal places. So everywhere you see 3 or 4 decimal places, it's going to be cut down to only 2 decimal places and rounded up if needed. Then we're going to apply the comma style to other parts of our worksheet. So when you are using currency values, it is customary to have the first row be identified with currency or the $sign, and then the last row or the total row be identified with $signs. So what we are going to do is select our hourly pay rate, which is a currency, and then we'll go over, so E4 through H4, and then we're going to hold down our control key and we're going to select J4. We're going to continue holding down our control key, and we're going to come down here and select F13 through H13, and then we'll come over here and click J13. Now up on our home ribbon, we are going to find our number section, and where you see the $sign, that is going to apply the accounting number format. So we'll just click that $sign, and you'll see that all of those cells now have a $sign that is on the far left side of the cell, a comma where it's needed, and they all have only 2 decimal places. So this is the accounting number format. The accounting number format is always going to have what's called fixed $signs. Those fixed $signs are fixed at the left edge of the cell. So no matter how large I make the cell, that $sign is going to stay on the left side of that cell. Now we are going to select E5 through H12. We'll hold our control key down, and we're going to select J5 through J12. Now we have those 2 sections selected. We're going to apply the comma style. So we'll click on the comma up here in our number style. Now all of those are formatted with 2 decimal places and a comma if needed. We're going to come over here to our highest, lowest, and average. We'll go to D14, and we're going to click and drag down to D16, and we're going to choose the comma style for that section as well. We're going to apply what's called the currency style now, and you may be wondering what's the difference between currency style and accounting style. And basically it is the appearance of the dollar signs. When you use the accounting style format, your dollar signs are going to automatically be formatted so that they're always on the left side, or what's called a fixed dollar sign. When we apply the currency style format, they are going to be floating dollar signs. So let's go ahead and select our range E14 through H16, and then J14 through J16. We'll go up to the Home tab in the Number group, and we are going to click our dialog box launcher again. Because we were in the Number section, it does come up with the Number tab selected. We're going to come down to Currency instead of Accounting. So when we click on Currency, you will see that it has 2 decimal places, it has a dollar sign, and then we have a choice of negative numbers. We want to set the negative numbers so that they show up in black but with parentheses around them. So this should be set the way we want it. Currency, 2 decimal places, a dollar sign, and negative values will be in black font with parentheses. So we'll click the OK button. We don't have anything that's negative just yet, so everything is positive values, so there is no parentheses showing. We're going to format our percent column now, so we'll go to I4 through I15, and up on our home ribbon in the Number section, we'll just click that percent button. What that does is it applies a percent, it makes it a whole percent. We want to have 2 decimal places, so to the left of the comma style, there is an increase decimal and a decrease decimal. We're going to increase that decimal twice so that we have 2 decimal places showing in our tax percent. Next, we are going to learn how to do conditional formatting. Conditional formatting, you'll want to read more about this in your textbook, but basically what it's going to do is we are going to work with our hours worked column. So we want to identify the cells in this range that have 70 or more hours that someone has worked in this pay period. If the hours that someone has worked is 70 or more, then we want to format those cells with a purple fill and white letters, or white number values. So to do this, you have to select the range that you want, and I think this is where students get confused because they will go up here to conditional formatting, but they won't have the range selected. So you have to have the range selected first, and what you're saying is, this is the range that I want the conditions, the conditional formatting set for. So if somebody works 70 or more hours, it's going to show up and it's going to identify me, who that is. So I have my range selected. Come up here to the conditional formatting button. In your homework, I think you're going to use one of these options. I think it's in the icon set, but I can't remember. So you'll use one of these options. But for what we're doing in our textbook project, we're going to come down here and we're going to choose New Rule. We want a new rule, and we want it to be set for this second option, which is format only cells that contain a cell value that is greater than or equal to 70. Now, if you just say OK to this, it's not going to show you anything because right now the format is a white background with black text. And that's what you have already set. So you have to remember to click your Format tab to go in and change the formatting. So our font color we can change to be white. And then we can go to our fill color, and we want to choose this purple. And I think it is the purple. Yes, we're just going to use the one in that top row. So it is the, what is that? 5, 6, 7. Yeah, the 7th one in the first row is a purple color. What color is that? Okay. I don't know why I'm, oops, what did I do? So, all right, so here's a preview. I'm going to have purple background with white lettering. That's what I want. Anything that's greater or equal to 70, say OK. Now, if I look in my range that I had selected, everything that's 70 or more has a purple shading to it with white lettering. Now, the nice thing about conditional formatting, if you do it correctly, let's say that the next pay period, Benny worked 80 hours. And so did Ben. Let's say he worked 85 hours. But this guy took a week off, so he only has 40 this pay period. And Linda, she only worked 60. She had a few days off as well. So you can see that by changing the hours worked, maybe for the next pay period, one, all of the numbers changed over here because of the change here. But also our conditional formatting lets us see easily each pay period who has worked 70 or more hours by them being highlighted with that conditional formatting that we set. Again, this is a step that a lot of students have difficulty with, so just make sure that you go back and review section 2-8, letter J. That's applying conditional formatting. And go back and review that before you turn your assignments in. All right. We're going to adjust the column width of some of these columns, and we're going to change the row height. So what they have us do is use the best fit option. So we're going to select columns A, B, and C. And then you're going to point to the boundary. It can be any boundary. Right click and, left click, double click on the edge of any of those that are selected, and it will automatically widen each column to the width that it needs to be able to show everything. So that's what's called best fit. If we go over here to column H, they have us set this to 10.38. So you can click and drag if you would like and try to get that to be right on 10.38. But sometimes when you release your mouse, that number gets changed accidentally because you didn't have a super steady hand. So what you can do to be exact in your setting of your column widths is to come to the heading, where the letter is, and do a right click. So right on H, the heading of H, you'll do a right click and come down to column width, and then you can type in 10.38. And this is sometimes where students get counted off as well, and they think that they have set it to be exactly what it's supposed to be, but you can also always check it by selecting your column heading and doing a right click and looking at your column width and seeing if it truly is set to the width that you want it to be. All right, so column I, they have us set to 10.5. So again, if you want to, just do column width, 10.5. It changes that for you. we'll select column F and G, and we're going to hold our control key down, and we're going to select column J and K. And we're going to set those to 11.13. Then we have a couple of rows that we want to increase the height of those rows as well. So row 3 is already a little bit bigger because of the 2 lines of text that we put in them, but we want this to be 39. So you can click and drag down. So it was on 35 something. So, okay, there's 39 or 52 pixels. And then we also are going to do row 14. So we'll go to the heading of 14 and we're going to drag it down to 24. Okay, so once you have that set, then you can let go of your mouse and you are ready to move on to the next part. This is you do a spell checker. Always a good idea to do that, especially on the projects where they give you a start file that actually has data in it, because they usually put a spelling error in there somewhere. And it's always a good idea. We don't do months of the year here, but we do, I think, next project. People always type February wrong or September wrong or something like that. Not because they don't know how to spell it, but it just, their fingers get messed up. So always a good idea to do a spell check. We are going to change the view of our workbook. So right now we're in what's called normal view. Down here in your status bar, you can change from normal view to page layout view to page break view. You can also change views by going to the view ribbon up here. And again, you have normal, page break, and page layout. So we're going to change the page layout view. And when you're in page layout view, you will actually see where you have a header and a footer that you can apply to your worksheet. Before we get our header and footer put in there, we are going to change the page layout and the margins of our workbook here. So where we see page layout tab, we'll click on there. We'll go to orientation and we're going to change from portrait to landscape. And then we're also going to go to the margins and we're going to choose narrow margins. To add a header, you'll notice that there are 3 sections to the header. We're going to click in the center section, and then we're going to type Madeline Samuels. Now I'm going to also tell you here, make sure you type this information exactly as it is supposed to be. If you do not, you will not get credit for having added a header to your document. Alright, so you can also do a spell check after you've put that information in, just to make sure you've spelled chief and financial correctly, and officer, because even though we should be able to spell those correctly, sometimes our fingers don't always hit the right letters that we want them to. We do not put a footer in. Okay, we're going to go back down here to our worksheet somewhere, and then we're going to go to our page layout tab. Okay, we already changed this to landscape, so I don't know why it's telling us to do that. Double-click the border to the right of F, because now what you're seeing are hashtags, or pound signs, or I refer to them as railroad tracks a lot. So in column F, you'll see that those pound signs, that is telling us that column F is not wide enough so that we can see all of that information. So we'll come up here to column F, come to the right hand side and do a double click, and we'll extend that just a little bit. We'll do the same thing with column J. Now, if we were to do a print, let's just go do the file and print and see what this is going to look like. So here it is all in one page. Great, I can see it all. Sometimes this depends on the printer that you are connected to, whether whether it's set up to print with the same margins and things. So sometimes you may have to fudge it a little bit. You can do that by going into the no scaling. You can say fit on one sheet, but a lot of times when you do that, it gets really tiny and you can't see it. You can do fit all columns on one page, but again, we're seeing them all on one page anyway. You can do custom scaling as well, so that you can fit it to one page by one page. Or you can do adjust to 95%, whatever. So those are some options that you can use if you need to make some adjustments so it can all get printed on one page. What you'll need to do after if you've played around with those scaling options, is make sure you come back and choose no scaling. That may get checked in the SAM grading, I don't know, but just make sure you did that. The next section shows you how to print just a certain section of your spreadsheet. So we'll go back to our spreadsheet, and we're going to select only the range A3 through F16. Once we have that section selected, we're going to come to File and Print, and here you will choose to print the selection, and that's where you'll get only the cells that were selected. Now, you can also do that. Let me go back to our document. You can also do that by when you are in the page layout section of your ribbon, or the page layout tab on your ribbon, you will see where it says print area, and you can choose set print area to be only the section that is highlighted. So then if you were to go to the print, even if you have print active sheets, it's only going to print what you had set to that set print area. Bonus information for you here, you can go into the page setup, into the margins, and you can center horizontally and vertically on the page, or just horizontally. Horizontally is going to center it between the left and right. Vertically is going to center it between the top and bottom margins. So you can choose both of them, and it's going to put it right smack in the middle of the page. The issue here comes that we do have a header that's going to be at the top of the page. So you may want to just center it horizontally, not vertically, and then it would print like this. So that is just a little bonus information as far as printing goes there. So the last little thing here I'm going to show you is, let me come back here. It is a good idea if you set your print area to then make sure you do the clear print area, and that way it won't print only that selected area the next time you go into print. The last thing I want to show you is how to view what is called the formulas version of your workbook. So I'm going to go back to normal view, and then to view my formulas version, what we're looking at now is referred to as the values version. I'm in cell F11, and you'll see up here that it says this is the formula, D11 times E11. Okay, that's fine and good. But if I want to see all of my formulas, I can hold the control key down and push the key that has the accent mark or the tilde on it. That key is located above the tab key and also to the left of the number 1 key on your keyboard. So you'll do control, the accent mark. Every column increases in width. You can decrease the column size of these if you want to, but when you go back to your values version, now those columns are going to be a lot smaller than they were before you switched over here. But if you needed to print the values version for some reason, you might want to go ahead and make those columns be the size that's best fit so you can get more on a page. But what you see here in the formulas version is every cell that has a formula in it, you're seeing the results or what you've actually typed in to those specific cells. So you'll see where you've typed in multiplication, this complex one where it has subtraction, multiplication, and then another multiplication, where you've had addition and division. And then over here in the dates, I mentioned this in class tonight, you'll see it just has a numeric value there, which converts to however many days showing there is from January 1 of 1900. You'll see your functions listed down here. The thing that you need to know about being able to switch from the values version to the formula version is if for some reason you're getting the results that you don't think are right, you can always click over here, look at all these formulas, see if you can find one that's not right or something that's causing you problems. To get back to the regular view or the values version, same thing, control, accent mark. Now, what you'll see here, because I changed the column widths, is that several of these are not the right size now. So if you were supposed to have them set to a specific size, you'll probably need to go back and change those, or just hit your undo button until you go back to what that was like beforehand. So anyway, so that's all of Module 2, and hopefully this is very beneficial to you, and hopefully it's not super long for you. So good luck with Module 2, and let me know if you have any questions.